Hey. Give people another minute to get in. All right, let's get started with our accountability check-in. Taylor, you want to get us started off?
Yeah, I was talking with the Western Title girls this morning and I got scheduled to sit in on a mock closing.
Awesome.
So I'm excited for that. And then I have 2 open houses scheduled for this weekend.
Excellent. Good job. Stacy, how about you?
I met with uh, mortgage broker today, and I'm gonna meet with him again on Friday because he has got a lot of good tools in his toolkit, a lot of stuff that he was showing me. So that was pretty cool. And there was something else, and I cannot remember it at the second. But yeah, that was a pretty good one. And how do I find open houses to do?
You can post on the mastermind page for your office, the KWSC mastermind page, that you're available.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes. Q?
Hi.
How's it going?
Um, Things are going okay. I did a broker tour yesterday with Stacy, Nagam, Isha, and Songhanya from
Yeah.
10:45, and it was very useful, and then it was quite interesting altogether.
Good.
And I met quite a bit of other brokers, and the houses were just amazing. They were all gorgeous, and I made an order for my door hangers. I finalized my design, and then after the compliance check with you, and I don't know when it's gonna come, but I ordered it on Michael Lewis.
Okay, great.
and then my business card is on its way, and probably early March. So and then I started. I'm trying to create a new Facebook page. It's a business page. And then unfortunately I couldn't join you guys for Instagram, Facebook Reel Ignite class. So if you can share that recording, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can send that coaching class to you. No problem. Joanna,
I am doing a volunteer Wednesday, and it's amazing because this morning I get 3 new contacts.
oh great.
Yeah, and I got a open house for this weekend too.
Good job. Brendan, how's everything going with you?
Things are good. I had my first meeting yesterday with potential clients, and it went really well. They said that when they're ready, they're gonna go with me. So yeah, I think I'll send them some paperwork soon.
Yeah, let me know if you need help with that paperwork and they're ready. All right. I think that's everyone for now. We'll see if we have a couple late people that trickle on. Today, you guys have Corin Thompson. He is a realtor with Keller Williams Eugene Springfield, and he has over 15 years of experience in risk assessment, income and credit analysis, as well as commercial and consumer lending. And he enjoys being a resource for his clients and fellow agents in all facets of real estate experience. So really excited to have him on today. He is part of our ALC for the Eugene office and just an overall wealth of knowledge. So make sure you engage, ask questions, pick his brain as you guys go through your class today.
Thanks, Mara. Yeah, it's good to be here. Hopefully I'm not too boring for you. This is an important topic as far as making sure that you're getting legit sellers and buyers. So that's the topic for today. But yeah, like Mara said, I was in commercial lending prior to this for almost 15 years. And had a portfolio of my own and help people buy and sell businesses, but also just operate and do commercial real estate loans as well as business loans, and did my income analysis and that type of thing. So I definitely know the more investment side of things, but also just the benefit of being able to help people assess risks on if they want to buy their own house or have a lending background as well. And my wife was in mortgage lending for over 20 years. And she just recently actually left our team in the real estate world and went into Cascade Title. So she actually has got the 3 experiences of the real estate deal under her own belt. So I literally live with an in-house expert with the 3 different facets of real estate. So that's how I kind of help differentiate myself when I'm working with my clients. However, you guys all need to find your own niches on, how you guys are going to do that, basically. Let's see here if I can actually share my screen somehow. Oops, there we go. Let's see here. It's probably just a button that says share screen. I just can't find it. As you can see, technology is not my favorite here. Share literally says that. There you go. All right, you guys see the box of thing? It says Ignite session 13, all that fun stuff. All right, I'm getting a thumbs up from at least one person and a head nod. Good. All right, that's a plus start, right? Okay. Shrink you guys down here. Okay. So have you guys all been going through Ignite, or is this your first class, or like what kind of experience background do you guys have? Just real quick from each of you guys.
I've been in Ignite since the first class, since the beginning.
Okay. Anybody else?
Same here. I've been in this class since the beginning, since the first.
Good. Okay.
I joined this market center late January, so it's been only 3 weeks or so. Yeah.
Okay. So you got a few under your belt, but not all of them.
I've been to around 5 or 6 classes so far.
Perfect. Okay. So everybody's got at least something under the belt, not 100% green, but definitely on the newer side. So perfect. That just gives me an idea of kind of how far we want to dig into this. Feel free to ask questions as we go through this. This class is, I mean, it's laid out for me to talk about certain points, but a couple of you guys mentioned doing open houses and getting leads and feeling like they're good. A good start in the right direction. Obviously, this class is to help you make sure those are legit and you are headed in the right direction with somebody. All right, so like I said, the objectives: identify where and how to lead generate for buyers and sellers, classify leads by ability and motivation, and qualify a buyer and seller in preparation for an appointment. So you want to going into it, you want to do a little bit of digging. You don't have to, do a whole ton of it, but you want to make sure you're going to go meet somebody that's legit. Just even some qualifying questions online, or excuse me, on text or your initial phone call will help. All right, let's see here. Your number one job as a real estate agent is to find ways to get in the path of motivated buyers and sellers. So that's a quote from Gary Keller. It's the book Shift. If you haven't read that one, it's a good one, as well as The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Those are a couple of good reads for you guys to pick up if you haven't read them or listened to. Okay, find the motivated. When we're new at something, it can be easy to get caught up in the myth understandings that block success. Remember the lesson in day one, if you had it, limiting beliefs. Who's heard that term? What is your interpretation of that, Taylor? What is limiting beliefs to you?
Believing that you can't do something, I guess.
That's fair. Yeah.
Putting limits on what you think you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of what misunderstandings are. They're instead of misunderstandings, they're myth understandings. So they're myths that are either you put in your own head or people have talked about this industry and you guys getting into it. Maybe you believe them because you came from the general population. But you will hopefully learn that some of those things are maybe not true and certainly don't have to be true for you. Hey Brent, if you wouldn't mind muting your microphone.
Okay.
All right, I'll do it for you. So some of the things that you have a limiting belief or misunderstanding, like lead generation. A lot of people dread that, thinking that it's only cold calls. You have to sit on the phone for 8 hours a day calling people in order to have successful lead generation. Hopefully you'll find out that that is not true. Part of lead generation is finding a way that works for you, that doesn't feel like something you need to dread. So that's just an example of a myth understanding or limiting belief of getting inside your own head that lead generation has to be extremely difficult. So does anybody have maybe a belief or a myth understanding that that they maybe are scared of, or that they feel is maybe something like a limiting belief that they want to share?
Maybe the case that we have no enough knowledge in this moment because we don't have the experience. Like
Okay, so you said you don't feel like, or you believe you don't have enough knowledge to do your job, or just do it as well as other people. Is that kind of what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, exactly. When you, for example, when you host a open house and the people ask something about the house or something about your experience, it's really hard to handle with that.
Okay, okay. And have you had somebody specifically ask you about your experience
Yeah,
as a
some
realtor?
people ask me about how marketing a property or how is the best time to buy or sell a house.
Okay, so they're asking you questions about the market essentially, not necessarily about you and your experience specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, no, that's a great one. It's a very common one for especially newer agents to have because you don't know what you don't know. And you feel like you maybe are inadequate or don't know enough to help a buyer or seller or field those questions. And you know that's part of these classes is to help you educate yourself and learn how to combat those questions. Directly to that point, though, I just want to say that I very rarely had somebody ask me directly how much experience and how long I've been an agent, and I know that's something that newer agents struggle with, and that's a myth understanding that a lot of newer agents have, and you have to get past that by learning as much as possible and not being afraid to be wrong, and admitting that maybe you don't know that, but coming up with a way to still sound professional, but allow yourself time to go find the answer. So if you're at an open house and says, "What is this a good time to buy?" Hopefully you know enough to give them at least a little bit of an answer of, you know, it really depends on where you want to go and what your time frame is, whether or not this is a good time to buy. But a way to maybe get past that specific question is, well, that's a great question. Right now, this is an open house. You know, I'm not sure if other people are going to come in. Let me get your contact information, and I'd love to set up a time that we can have that conversation one-on-one, either over the phone or in person at my office. And then we can discuss whether or not it's the right time to buy for you. And that deflects, it answers the question, but it also deflects the opportunity for you to stumble over your words during that immediate question, because you don't know their background, right? You don't know whether or not right now is a good time to buy for them. And it's the truth, but it also allows you then to go do some market research and find the answers that you feel like they're maybe going to ask in that one-on-one meeting with them. Also, you get their contact information, which is the whole point of an open house.
Yeah, the other situation, for example, this morning I was talking with a friend of mine and she said that she's renting and she wants to buy a house. But she's really afraid about the monthly payment, about the interest, but I don't have that enough knowledge today in order to motivate her in order to buy a house.
Okay. So that's a great point. You do have friends and family that come up to you inevitably when you first become licensed. On that one, I find most of the time buyers or potential buyers, that's part of this, is to determine whether or not she's serious or if she's just asking to generate conversations. One way to help find out is if you have a lender partner, is to say, hey, I've got a great lender partner that you know, is very knowledgeable on how much payments would be for your specific instance. Most of the time, they don't even have to pull credit in order to give you at least a general idea of what that payment would be. So if you're okay with it, let me share your contact information with my lender, and they can reach out to you, and then we'll know exactly what you're able to be qualified for and what that payment is. And then you can decide for yourself whether or not that payment is going to be scary to you or manageable. And then we can have more of a discussion on what that price point looks like and what's available in the market. Right. So that's, again, you don't have to know the answer. You just need to find people that do know that answer. And that'll help deflect it to the lenders, which you don't know the payment for them anyway, right?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, you're welcome.
What about using Google? If you search it up on Google, and it's going to spit out some mortgage calculator. Actually, you can get the amortized monthly payment right in front of you very quickly. So is it a better or just contacting your fellow lender friend and move forward with that information.
Yeah, that's a great question. How do you pronounce your name again?
Q, you can call me Q.
Q. Yeah, so Q, that's a great question. I would be cautious about using those calculators. They're somewhat accurate, but you also don't know what interest rate they're going to qualify for. And that's going to be a big impact on their overall payment. Because you don't know their credit report, you don't know what their current debt load is on. There's a whole bunch of things that go into what the actual payment is going to be. So
Right.
while that is a good tool to kind of
Right,
give you
you're-
a general sense.
You're absolutely correct. But what I'm saying is like, in order for you to sound very professional, you can come up with some quick solution to answer that specific question. Then and then obviously when we calculate some numbers, we always make assumptions. Oh, okay. Typically we make assumptions like, oh, I'm assuming your credit score would be like above 700, 720, and then in general, lenders are favorable to those who with above credit score of 720 or something. Then that assumption can give you some solid number from the calculator. So do you think that's a fair approach to sound professional at the moment? And then later, if you're really interested, I can introduce you to my fellow lender, mortgage processor, or some broker. Then you can talk to then, and then we can move forward.
I think you have a good point, and if you're comfortable giving those stats with the caveat of I'm not your lender, I don't know exactly what your rate is going to be, but
Right.
here's a general
Right.
idea,
Right.
then that's great. Some people don't even understand enough about how mortgage is calculated to be able to be comfortable with that. But if you have that experience and you're comfortable with that, then absolutely just make sure you are giving that disclaimer of I'm not your lender. Don't quote me on this rate or payment because it will be different when we actually talk
Okay.
with a real lender.
Yeah, because we all study for a broker's exam, and then actually we get the formula like equation for that. So
Yeah, there's a general knowledge for sure.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Okay, let's see here. So this is specifically for buyers and how they found their agents. If you look at the percentages, majority of them come from a referral, whether that be from a friend, neighbor, relative. So using your sphere is very important because in all buyers' cases, almost 50% of them found their agent through somebody they knew. So that's why your sphere of influence is so important. The 13% of buyers that found a previously or used the agent from a previous transaction is actually up from years in the past. And that's a important thing for you guys as newer agents to learn and get in the habit of follow-up. Because if you look at that number, it's crazy low if you want to be real about that. That means 87% of people don't use the same realtor again. That's a huge number. And that's lack of follow-up on our part as the agent. So just because you close a transaction with somebody doesn't mean you cut them out of your life and never talk to them again. Because the average people transact with roughly 5 to 7 years. I think it might be slightly longer than that now. But yes, that's a long time to keep in contact with somebody. But I mean, if I'm making a $20,000 commission on somebody and I don't stay in touch with them because I lose track of it, that's $20,000 in my pocket 5 years from now that I lost just because I didn't want to send them a text every 6 months. Right. And it seems like not a lot of work in order to potentially make a lot of money. So, and then, yeah, looking at, so if you're a listing agent, some people saw it on whatever online site and they called you. It doesn't happen very often. That's why it's 7%. For sale open house signage. So those open houses, it's a great way to start lead generating yourself as newer agents. You maybe don't have money or, a different way of doing that, maybe not a large sphere if you're younger or into a new area. A great way is out of state or out of area agents, start building relationships with them because they will refer you business. All right, whoops. Let's see here. Did I do that? Okay. And then how sellers found their agent. Pretty similar, pretty similar numbers. However, the percentage for, it's interesting. First time, so they just forgot to change that graphic. Anyway, it's less as far as a referral from people. You will find that most of the time, if somebody's going to go sell their house, they're not usually talking to people about it beforehand, right? They just go and list their house. They find their agent some other way. And previous agents, so usually it's the buyer agent that helped them buy the house. They're going to call them back up and say, hey, you want to help me sell this because you helped me buy it. But that's only if you stay in contact with them. I've actually gotten a few deals over the years just because people thought Keller Williams was all one agent. And they just called me and said, hey, you work at Keller Williams. I used you to buy my house last time. You want to help me sell it? I'm sure. I didn't help you buy it, but sure, I'll help you sell it. Right. So that's differentiating yourself. Just because you have Keller Williams on your tag, people do assume we all work together. And we do, in the fact of, we help each other learn, but we don't share commissions usually. All right, so you guys all familiar with Command? Okay, good. So it's a great way. They have tools within this to track your opportunities. It's also how you get paid. So it's a great way to dig into a system that you should or have to be using anyway once you do a transaction. But it's also an opportunity for you to track how many buyers and sellers you have, how many leads you have, and where they're at in the process. And then you can generate reports on a consistent basis to determine that. So highly recommend digging into Command as much as possible and utilizing the tools that you guys are afforded because you're part of Keller Williams. But within there, the opportunities, you have A, B, and C buyers. Is anybody familiar with that? What that means? So there's A, B, and C. Basically, it's a category of, are they ready, willing, and able? Are they 2 out of 3 of those, 1 out of the 3 of those, or none out of the 3 of those? Right? You might be having that conversation, Johanna, with your friend, but are they ready, willing, and able? Right? Are they able? Sure, maybe they make enough money, but are they willing to move forward with it if the circumstances present themselves right? Are they ready? Maybe it's they have to wait for, who knows, the kid to graduate high school and then they're going to move to a different house, right? Those are the things that you have to be able to decipher. So within this, you have the cultivate, appointment, active, and under contract. And the cultivate is, probably using that as an example where you're at right now. You're cultivating, you're having that initial conversation with somebody. That's somebody that's going to be more on the seed side of things. And once you move to an appointment, then maybe that bumps up to more of a B, depending on how that appointment goes. And then if they're actively pre-approved with something with a lender and you're actively looking for a house, that's when you move them to active, and that becomes an A because they are actually actively looking for a house. So that's a tool that you can use. You can use Excel if you want. You can do whatever you want, but Command is there for you, and it's a great tool for you. All right. Anything you guys have learned so far? Good. I'm glad that we're just going through this and nobody's learning anything. A good idea though is to write down anything that you do learn so that after this class you can refer back to it and at least pretend like I taught you something today. So like I was talking about the ready, willing, and able. So we actually say able, ready, and willing. It just switches it up a little bit. And why do you think we start with able?
Is it the most important one?
Say that again, Stacy. Taylor, I heard you, but Stacy kind of cut out.
They have to be able to buy it before they can proceed.
Yeah, exactly. If they're not able, ready and willing doesn't matter, right? If they don't qualify for a loan, then it doesn't matter if they're ready to buy or not. So that's why able is the important step. That's why going back, that's usually the first step I talk to my clients about as a buyer is I ask them, one, do you have cash to buy it outright? Or two, do you need financing and are you pre-approved with a lender? Because those are all very, very important qualifying questions. You working into a conversation, you don't just meet somebody and say, hey, my name is Corin. Are you pre-approved with a buyer or with a lender? That's not going to build any kind of reputation or rapport with the person. You build it into the conversation after obviously you start with the conversation. But focus becomes increasingly possible in direct proportion to how clear you are about what you want, when you want it, and what you must do to get it. So that's a Millionaire Real Estate Agent, Gary Keller quote. It's from his book. This quote doesn't just apply to us as agents. It applies to everyone. When buyers and sellers know what they want, when they want it, and what they need to do to get it, then our role as agents is much clearer. Help them find the property they desire and close the transaction. And we're going to cover a little bit more about when they're able, ready, and willing. So if you want a graph, this is kind of a way to determine if they're all three. So if they're in one or two of the bubbles, they're not really ready to rock and roll. So you guys, it says come from curiosity on there. That basically means keep asking questions until you feel like you've gotten an answer that qualifies them to a point where you're comfortable going to the next step. And because there's a lot of opportunities, especially in open houses or lead generation, where you talk to people and they sound super excited. And you're really excited about, having a conversation with them, which is great. You gotta celebrate the small victories. But be careful spending a whole bunch of time with people until you qualify them in these three categories. Because you will find that you will spin your wheels for a long time with somebody that you feel maybe is ready, willing, and able. But until you actually officially know that, you can spend a lot of time and waste a lot of your time when somebody isn't really ready. And if they say, oh yeah, I'll be ready in a year or two, that's great to establish a conversation and that relationship. But just working how delicately you can continue to contact them over that period of time without wasting a whole bunch of time initially. Because there's a high likelihood that they move on to somebody else within that year's period if you don't keep in contact with them. All right. So able meaning potential client is financially and legally capable of completing a transaction now. Ready, potential client is motivated and prepared to make strategic decisions now. Willing, potential client is eager to buy, sell, or both. So you just have to be able to decipher all three of those because people can be energetic, but it's a false energy. So even further in, you want to classify the time frame, right? That's kind of what I was just touching on. You want to know whether or not they're like now, right? 0 to 14 days, basically. In a little bit, 15 to 60 days, or a couple months down the road, 61 plus days or farther. Obviously, years down the road is a little bit different too. When we have someone who is able, ready, willing, and motivated to do business soon, those are the A buyers and sellers. Our number one goal is to secure the appointment and close with a signed buyer's agreement or listing agreement. Our B buyers and sellers are either unable, not ready, or not willing to right now. They may be motivated and something needs to happen first, or our goal with B buyers and sellers is to follow up with frequency and intensity using touch plans and motivated for action plans. C buyers and sellers have no immediate need to transact. These are the perfect candidates for longer term nurtures and 36 touch plan. Hopefully you've already developed those in the previous sessions. And Command is a great way to stay in front of it. They have smart plans that allow you to do that almost automatically, depending on the way that you go about that. With the able, ready, willing framework in hand, we're almost ready to qualify potential buyers and sellers. What we need now are the questions conversation starters rather, that will help us determine who is able, ready, and willing. In this section, we are going to cover how to use the buyer lead sheet and pre-listing questionnaire as our qualification tools. Do you guys have those? Okay, they'll come up on the screen here in a minute anyway, so you can get at least the gist of it if you don't have it in your hand. All right. In the last section, the last class, I'm assuming if you attended, we started with a win-win of qualification. Our potential client win because we provided them with the right value at the right time, and we win because we get to focus our attention on helping client who are ready to buy or sell. All right. I think we already covered that. So it's important to use the same buyer qualification process for all buyers and the same seller qualification process for all sellers to make sure we are always in compliance with fair housing regulations. It's important to document the qualification system and having a checklist. That way you just know that this is where I'm at, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing this. It makes it easier to be consistent and ensure that you'll provide every client with the same high quality service consistently. The documented system can also be a lifesaver if there ever is a question about fair practices. Also, it might cover a little bit here too, but don't be afraid to be professional with your friends and family. I've been bitten more than once making the assumption that my friend or family know that I'm professional and know I will take care of them. And I don't go through these checklists with them. I'm like, oh yeah, I've known you for 15 years. Sure, I'll help you buy the house. And then they find somebody else, another agent that comes in and goes through all these checklists, which I normally do, but didn't in this case because they were friends or family. And they're like, well, you just treated me like a friend. You didn't treat me like a buyer that was important to you. So just a heads up from my loss. Hopefully you guys learn from my mistake, and many other agents do it as well. All right, so use a buyer lead sheet to guide you through the qualifications. It's probably a good idea to memorize the majority of this. So you don't necessarily have to have this while you're talking to somebody at an open house or whatever. You know, okay, what's your name? What's your email, right? The more you practice, the less computerized you sound, or robotic rather. So but the important thing basically is to get through get as many of this information as you can, and just working into normal dialogue of your own. You could do scripts or talking points or whatever we're calling them these days, but it's just important to make it your own. I'll give you that piece of advice. The scripts are great. They give you the general idea, but practice it until you can make it your own. Otherwise you sound like a robot.
I can see the question about the pre-approval. Is good or not to do ask the question for a buyer about the pre-approval?
Asking somebody about whether they're pre-approved?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm planning on working with them, then yes, I absolutely ask them whether they're pre-approved or if they have a how they're planning on purchasing the house is kind of how I phrase it a little bit. Because some people do have the cash to buy a house outright, right? And so you can just say, are you pre-approved with the lender, or do you need a loan in order to purchase this house? And if they say no, then you follow up with, okay, well, you know, how are you planning on purchasing this? Or what means are you using to purchase this? But I always ask if they're, I mean, I don't, at an open house, I don't necessarily ask that unless it comes up throughout the conversation. But being qualified, that's part of being qualified, is being pre-approved. If you're not pre-approved, you're not ready. We don't know if you're able, right? You might be ready, but we don't know if you're able. And some people are like, oh yeah, my credit score is amazing. I make a boatload of money. You know, I know I'll be approved for it. A lot of people say that, and work it into your own way of I use humor a lot of times and just deflect it. And just, you know, try and say, oh yeah, no, I totally understand where you're coming from, but you know, we'll let the lender be the bad guy and you know, give us the news whether or not you are qualified or not, you know, something to that effect. I don't say the bad guy because most of the time the lender is my friend, but something to that effect where, you know, I'll totally understand. We get this, you know, but the being formally pre-approved, the seller on the other side and the listing agent, unfortunately won't take our word for it that you're able to buy this. So you can use something like that as well. Some of the other questions on here, is there anybody else buying a home with you? That's a very, very, very important question. Don't harp on it, but you know, you may only have one person walking through initially that you meet. Don't assume they're the only one. Because if you're going to schedule a meeting, you want everybody that is going to make a decision at that meeting. Because otherwise you're talking to one half, and that other half may be interviewing another agent as well, right? Or they don't even know that their partner is looking to buy a house. I've had that one happen before. That's a fun conversation after you get a little bit deep into it. Unless you guys want to role play, I'll skip that. Most people say no, so I just assume that you guys don't want to. All right. So any learning experiences from using that buyer lead sheet or what we talked about recently?
When would be the best time to use that? Because I feel like at an open house, you usually want to keep it like pretty short.
Yeah, if you're bored and one person has come through in the 2 hours that you've been sitting there, and go through the whole buyer consultation at that point. I mean, honestly, if you're just sitting there, just start, or go through and start building a relationship is usually what I do in an open house as much as I can, right? Because you never know when that next person's coming in. But if you get answers to some of those questions initially, great. Now you already know some of the answers, right? And then you know how to direct that next meeting a little bit more selectively, because you've already got some of those answers, or you know whether or not to even have the next meeting if you've already talked to them and you know, they're pre-approved and they tell you that they're working with another lender or another agent, right? Those are important questions to ask, because there are people that are already working with somebody else and they'll still meet with you, right? They'll still ask you a boatload of questions. So that's part of qualifying as well, as knowing that initially it's whether or not you should even have it. But I always schedule a buyer's consultation, whether it's a phone, Zoom, or video conference, or I prefer in person if you can get them into your office. If you work from home, I just come to my office center here in Eugene Springfield. We have some great small conference centers. I pull them in, it makes me look even more professional because I have this legit office that I'm pulling them into. You know, treat yourself and your business as a business. And people will think of you as more professional. So to answer your question, it really kind of depends on how much you know about this person, how much you learned about it initially, and how motivated they are. Like I said before, it doesn't necessarily need to be you sitting there reading this form to them. Did somebody else want to say something?
Yeah, How do you typically kind of gauge what between someone who kind of just wants to talk to you and aren't really ready to make any kind of moves versus, someone who's actually ready?
Sure.
Because a lot of the times they might not really, directly get into it.
Absolutely.
So how would you approach that?
Yeah, so the come with curiosity or just yourself. Whenever anybody else asks you how's the market or how I've been wanting to buy for a while, whatever the question is, try and answer their question either vaguely or directly, depending on what the question is. But how's the market is a very generic question. I get asked all the time. Some friends I literally see on a weekly basis, and they ask me every single time, how's the market? It's like literally just saying hello. Like that's just what they do to me, right? So they're not motivated at that point, right? They're just asking for a conversation starter. So if you know them, you start knowing that's just their MO. If you're just meeting somebody and they ask you how's the market or is now a good time to buy, dig into it and say, oh, well, I'm curious, why do you ask that question? Are you looking to buy right now? Is there something going on in your life that is making this a priority for you? And let them answer, right? And then depending on what they say, oh yeah, my kid's graduating in 2 months and I'm going to be an empty nester. And we get this huge house. I don't need it. I need to downsize. Sweet. Okay. So now you just got timeline, motivation. Well, are you looking to stay in the area? Are you looking to move out of the area? What's your, what's that? They'll tell you that. And then you got, okay, cool. I want to stay in the area. So do you own your house currently or are you renting? Sweet. Okay. So you got to sell and buy. I do both sides. Great. I can help you with both of those. And also I'm one person, so I can help you make sure that the timelines all line up. You start asking those clarifying and probing questions and dig deeper, you're going to get those answers on whether or not they're actually motivated. And then you can move to the step of, are they able to do what they are motivated to do and how to best process that. Great question. All right. So we touched on a little bit, touch plans. Like I said, Command has these amazing smart plans that are pre-programmed basically and proven if you do it the way that they're programmed, I guess you could say. But excuse me. You want to communicate with them often, and most of the time, more often than you feel you are comfortable with. Because a lot of these, especially like emails or newsletters, they're keeping you top of mind, but most of the time people don't even read them or look at them or until they are ready. And so you might think, oh my God, I have to throw 36 touches at one person over the course of the entire year. That's crazy, right? That's 3 times per month. I got to touch these people. But the reality is, 2 out of those 3, they're probably not even really recognizing that you're even there. If it's an email or anything like that. So when you first meet somebody, you actually should be touching base with them at least daily until you actually get them on the phone or to respond via text. And then they either tell you, oh, I'm not actually interested anymore at this point. Or, hey, thank you so much. I got busy. I really appreciate your follow-up. I've been seeing your texts, but I just have been busy and I forgot about it. So thank you very much for staying in touch. Let's make that appointment. So this is just kind of an idea of how to touch your clients. All right. So we qualify seller leads with a pre-listing questionnaire that helps us build relationship with the 6 connecting questions and classify our potential sellers as A, B, or C. So similar to buyers. Our pre-listing questionnaire will also help us create a pre-listing packet that wins the listing agreement by focusing on the seller's motivation. So similar to buyer side, you have the pre-listing questionnaire. I have one that I literally just email or mail if you have enough time before your listing appointment. And because mail is more expensive, but it is also a little bit more professional. It's tangible. I don't want to say it's more professional, but it's more tangible. They have it in their hands. It's harder to ignore, right? If you email it to them, they'll go, oh, that's great. I got an email from Corn. I'll get to it sooner or later. And then you get to the listing appointment and they, oh yeah, I saw it, but I've never even opened it. So always bring a copy with you if you don't already have it all memorized. But this is basically obviously a lot of questions about their motivation and where they want to go, why they're doing it. You know, some questions like what would happen if your home did not sell? Most people don't even think about that, right? A few years ago, it was unfathomable that a house wouldn't sell, right? But now, I mean, houses are sitting. There's a lot of expired listings out there because, you know, there's not as many buyers, or the houses are overpriced, or the expectation of buyers are like, it's not going to be a crap hole. It actually has to be a nice house for me to buy it. And sellers are kind of coming around to that idea that they actually have to fix up their house a little bit if they're going to sell it. So that's a legit answer. And most of the time when I ask that question, the seller's like, is that possible? And then you have to have that conversation that yes, it is possible. Or what if it takes 6 months or 8 months for your house to sell? Is it still going to work out for you? You know, as long as we do our job as agents, right? You know, and they listen to us, it shouldn't take that long in this market. But if they're not willing to drop the price to a certain level, it's going to sit, right? Do you have any questions before we meet? So that if you're on the call with them, or if you have the opportunity beforehand, you're sitting across from for some reason, then that most of the time they say no, and they're just going to ask it at the meeting. But sometimes they have one or two. That just helps you guys build that rapport with them even more, right? Or hey, I don't have the answer for you right now, but that's a great question. I'll bring it to the listing appointment. It's totally fine to say that, because then they're like, oh, sweet, I'm going to get some more information. I will guarantee to keep that meeting with Brent.
So when you're mailing this to people, you're asking them to mail it back to you as well?
No, if it's going to be a pre-listing appointment or a pre-listing packet, that one I wouldn't necessarily email, but I have a questionnaire very similar to that in my actual listing packet that I send over to them and say, hey, fill this out before my appointment with you, so that way we can have more in-depth conversations while I'm sitting across the dining room table from you. It's okay if you don't, but it'll just make our meeting a lot more efficient. Is usually what I say to them, and that gives them a reason to do it, rather than, hey, there's a bunch of questions in there, you know, we'll cover it when I'm there. Like, it just gives them another reason to touch something that you're sharing with them. If you mail it to them, obviously it's going to take 2 to 3 days to get there. So if you have an appointment tomorrow, don't mail it to them, because they're not going to get it until after you show up. Then you can just email it to them. But if you're a week out, you know, say it's whatever, it's today, Wednesday, and you're meeting on Sunday, you should be able to get them something in the mail by Friday, right? And you just say, hey, thanks for your time today on this phone call. I'm going to be mailing something out to you. Look for it in the mail. It's going to be some information about me and my business. And there's a questionnaire in there. We'll go over a lot of this stuff at the meeting, but if you answer a majority of these questions, it's a good opportunity for you and your partner to make sure that you guys are thinking about things in a similar way. Because oftentimes I find that, you know, a husband and wife or two people trying to buy one house or sell one house have a different opinion on certain things. And this just makes sure we're all on the same page, going down the same path. It gives you guys an opportunity without me there to have these discussions. So when I come over, we can all three talk about this on the same level and make a good game plan moving forward. So that's kind of the script, or the talking points that I give them for a reason to look at it. Again, it costs money to mail. You can email it just fine. It's another opportunity, but if you have to mail it, you have to get their physical address. Obviously, if you're a listing appointment, you're going to have that because you have to look up the property. But if you're going on a buyer's appointment. Usually they're going to come to my office. I don't usually go to their house if they're renting a house, unless it's a listing and a buy side of things. Any other questions? All right, similar thing, touch plans with sellers. You're gonna do almost the same thing. Really, you just touch them until they're ready to sell. Maybe some more detailed market updates about their specific neighborhood might be something you could touch them with, either email or call them or text them every once in a while. Hey, you know, I saw the weekly numbers, the houses in your area, you know, they've been sitting on the market a little bit longer. You said you needed to sell by, you know, get out of the house by the end of June. You know, they've been sitting for 2 months. So unless we get your house listed here in the next, you know, 30 days, we're going to be potentially bumping up to your timeline. So let's, you know, would you be interested in having that listing appointment maybe a little bit sooner? So you touch base and you keep that, you know, seed planted that, hey, I'm here for you. I'm giving you information. I'm watching the market. I'm your expert. Now might be a good time for us to have that conversation as opposed to waiting until end of April, right? Or whatever the time frame was initially. All right. This looks like it concludes our segment on lead follow-up, where we've covered the importance of following up with people in your database forever. I don't think I ever said that, but I kind of alluded to that, where 5 years down the road, somebody might be looking to sell their house that you help them buy. And if you don't follow up, then you're lost. We covered lead conversion, the path to appointment, signed agreement. Did we? I feel like this is all over the place. Strengthen relationships. Talked about how to qualify and categorize potential clients for now and for future business. It's jumped a lot. Jumped a lot here, but give us a lot of time to do something else here. Do you guys have any questions as far as how to qualify a buyer? I can just talk about any specific questions or anything that you guys have issues with.
What to do is you spend a lot of months with a buyer, and the buyer is seeing us some houses and they don't make the decision to buy a house. For example, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and they don't have the decision to buy a house.
Okay. You're asking if they go through the whole process and then decide not to buy? Is that what you're asking?
They don't say that, but you notice that they are not ready because they are watching some houses and you made many showings in the houses during a lot of time. What do you?
So you're saying that you're initially maybe they seem like they're motivated. You've qualified them as we've kind of discussed here, but throughout the process, they maybe aren't as interested as they were to begin with. And you're asking how do you handle that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So yeah, what I often do is if it's been any length of time and I see that kind of dwindling of motivation, whether it's a buyer or seller, I say, hey, you know, I think it's an opportunity for us to get on the phone or get in person meeting, or sometimes I bring it up when we're actually looking at a house, if we're still looking at houses. But I say, hey, you know, let's make this opportunity to really revisit your motivation. I just want to make sure that, you know, because some time has passed since we talked about that in our initial consultation. Is your motivation still the same, or has anything changed in the last month or two since we've started looking at houses? You know, because I've noticed that we've been looking at some houses, but none of them really seem to fit. So I just want to make sure that you're still, you know, headed down the same path, or has something changed in the parameters of your search? and see what they say. Just be straight up with them. I mean, you could even call them out and be like, hey, it looks like you're just dilly-dallying, but that's not my style. Some people might do that, but asking what their motivation has changed. It seems like something has changed. Are you getting frustrated? Are you getting burned out? Is there something that I'm not doing or doing that you're not liking at this point? Because I'm adaptable. I just need to know what maybe is bothering you, or what's changed. I feel like something has changed in this search process. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sometimes even that will help re-trigger it, because they're like, yeah, you're right, I am still motivated. I'm just frustrated because we haven't been able to find the one. And then you can talk about, okay, let's revisit how we talked about finding the one and making sure it's the right one. So that way we are still on the same page. Great question.
This may be going off topic a little bit from qualifying, but once customers are pre-approved, what price range are we showing them from their pre-approval price?
Okay, great question. I think it really depends on the buyer, your relationship with the lender, and how much information you can get from that lender. I have great relationships with a lot of lenders, but with the ones that I have a referral relationships and an active relationship with, they know that I know enough about lending they can share more specifics about certain things. But some things you could ask the lender are, okay, what do the taxes have to be? Because that can be very, very important. The property taxes can impact the payment almost as much as the dollar amount that they're purchasing a house for. So that's something you can ask a lender as you're building that relationship with that lender is, hey, I want to know, okay, yeah, that's great that I can look at a $400,000 house all in purchase price, but what do those taxes need to be, especially at that price point? Because if you're looking at $2,500 a year taxes versus $3,600 a year, or $1,200 more, that's another $100 a month, right? That they have to pay in taxes, and they have no control over that. That's just, they have to pay that. So that can make or break whether or not a $400,000 house with $2,400 taxes, or a $400,000 house with $3,600, that's $100, right? They may not be able to afford that same price point with the different taxes. So your question is a little bit loaded in the sense of, but it's each individual buyer, you need to know what that looks like and how much of a down payment they have, because that could allow some flexibility on whether or not you could bump that up to maybe a 425 looking. Like, I'm going to look at 425 because I feel like I can negotiate potentially, a $20,000 somewhere, either discounted price, credit, maybe you can buy down the rate so then they can afford that extra $5,000 or $10,000 type of thing, right? So each scenario is going to be some drastically different. That's why it's really important to have that relationship with the lender and have those conversations and understand it enough that you can then go, okay, yeah, this client has some wiggle room, so I'm going to bump that search up. This client is as tight as can be, and I have to find the house that fits their needs and has really low taxes and has no HOA and right. You're not going to bump that search up. You're gonna keep it at or maybe even below what their max is, because the chances of you finding the perfect thing and getting their hopes up with all these searches, right? They're going to come across a house. Oh my God, I love this. And then you look at the taxes and you're like, ooh, yeah, hopefully you didn't love it too much. Because now you have to kind of swallow your foot and go, oops, I showed you a house you can't afford, my bad. Most lenders will actually have a conversation on each individual property. If it's a tight client, they'll say, send me the address, and they go calculate the numbers and say, here's what the payment's going to be. You talk to your buyer and say, here's what the payment on this house is. Is it worth us looking at it? Because this is what it's going to be most likely, unless we can, negotiate a pretty good deal. And they say yes or no.
And can lenders give us this information before we have a signed agreement with the clients? or is it like a
Yes.
okay?
I mean, I would say that would be a question for a lender, technically, like legally, whether or not they are able to. But I mean, again, if you have a relationship with a lender, they're usually more than happy to share it with you as long as you haven't, burned them in the past with something you shouldn't have shared. But most of the time, if they're going to tell you, it's just fine that you tell your buyer that they shared it with you, unless they specifically say, don't tell them I told you this. Then yes, they can share it with you.
Okay,
But
thank you.
you want to get that buyer broker agreement signed as soon as possible. I mean, you can't even show them a house unless you get it signed. So it's pretty early on in the process that you get that. Going back a little bit to Johanna's question, the same thing with the seller, because I mentioned that houses are sitting on the market for a while now. Try and be proactive when you guys do get a listing. Be proactive with communicating with your seller, because if you're frustrated and getting burned out, guarantee you they are getting frustrated and burned out. And it's part of our job is to keep them motivated, right? Because if it's been sitting for 2 months and you told them, okay, the days on market at 60 days and now it's 61, are they thinking you're not doing your job because you're below average? It's been sitting longer. Especially if there's a whole bunch of showings and they're not getting offers, they're getting frustrated, and most of the time that's taken out on you as their listing agent, whether it's your fault or not. I mean, I have a house, I've had houses in the past where 3 or 4 showings a week, no offers. 3 months later, I'm doing my job. I'm getting the potential buyers in the door, just nobody likes it, right? Is that my fault? I mean, I'm not finding the right buyer, I guess, but I'm getting activity through their house. It's just not the right buyer hasn't walked in. But the inconvenience of a seller having to leave their house for an hour every single time there's a showing, it starts wearing on you after 3 months. So just keep that in mind as well.
I have a question that's kind of in like 2 parts. So when you're talking to, people trying to qualify them for the ready, willing, and able part, right? As
Yeah.
buyers, or I guess sellers both. Are there like ASAP questions that like you need to know right away that pop into your mind? Like these are the most important things out of all the questions you would be asking them, and do those change if you're talking to someone like at an open house versus not?
So you're asking like from that buyer qualification list, like what are the most
Yeah.
important questions kind of thing?
Yeah, like what do you need to know like before anything else?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the first things I work into a conversation after I introduce myself, say that we're at an open house, is I ask if they have an agent that they know and trust that they're working with. And I don't just ask them if they have an agent, because 95% of people say yes, whether or not they do or not, because I think you're a salesperson at this open house trying to hook them into something. But if you ask them if they have an agent that they know and trust, then that makes them stop for a second and go, I don't know if I know this person, or I don't know if I trust this person. I mean, it's not that long, but I mean, it does make them click, right? It's not just, yes, I do. And if they do say they do, then great. Do you have they shown you any houses, or why are you at this open house by yourself if you have an agent that's helping you out? And you start digging that into that a little bit more, because if they already have an agent and you ask, okay, do you have a buyer broker agreement signed? You have to work that one a little bit delicately, just because it does sound a little salesy if you're like, oh, did you sign a contract with somebody already? But you want to know that, because nowadays, if they don't have a contract signed, they are not working with that buyer's agent rather. So you want to work that into the conversation. If they say, yes, I've signed a contract with another buyer, great. Do you mind to ask who it is? Most of the people will give it to you. If they don't, then She just joined. Is this somebody you guys seen him before? Okay. How do you say your name? Chanizda?
Chinese time, sorry, I'm a little bit late because it's crashed with another meeting. So
Oh, that's okay. We're basically just doing a Q&A at this point. I finished way early because I didn't do a lot of the breakout stuff that people dread and don't like doing anyway. So I figured the question and answers would be a lot more beneficial to you guys. So you're jumping in the middle of it, but hopefully some of these questions will be pertinent to you.
okay, thank you.
What was I saying? Oh, so I asked who it is. I know a lot of the agents in my area. And if I do know them and they are a good agent, I'll say it. I'll say you're in good hands. They'll be, hopefully they'll take care of you. They've been around for a while. Sometimes if it feels appropriate, I'll work it in. If things don't end up working out, please remember me. I'd love to have an opportunity to interview for the position if things don't work out for some reason. It's an important decision for you, and if you don't feel like you're getting taken care of, give me a call. I'd love a shot at it. So you're not overstepping the bounds of that contract, but you're making it available that potentially, likelihood of them coming back to you is probably pretty slim, but if you don't put that out there, they won't ever think of you again. So I would say that's probably the top question. If they're not working with an agent, and then I use the spiel of, great, I'd love an opportunity to interview with you. Right now I'm at this open house, but I'm done at 3 p.m. And I'd love an opportunity to call you after that and connect, and we can either plan that or we can connect and find a time that works for both of us to have a dedicated time that we can have a conversation about why you're looking for a house and how I can help you. So that leads you into potentially asking for their contact information. If you're going to do that, follow up. Don't just take their information, throw it in the garbage, or set it on your desk for 3 weeks and go, oh yeah, that's right. Now they're going to remember who I am. I remember who they are. They have to remember who I am. They don't. As soon as they walk out that door, they've forgotten you. So that's why it's important for you to get their information. And then you do the follow-up. And you say, hey, remember you were at this open house at 2135 Minnesota, and we seemed like we connected, and I promised I'd follow up with you after this open house. Here I am. Did you go to any other open houses in the area? No. Oh, there's a couple that are pretty close to this. If you're looking for this, we'd love an opportunity to sit down with you and talk about how we can get you into these other houses that are similar to it, and just start working that conversation. Really, the end goal is to really build that rapport before you start asking for their information, unless they just offer it up. You could try sign-in sheets, but those work somewhat. Most of the information you get, one or both, are wrong.
Yeah, follow-up's really, really important, especially that first one, because it's a opportunity to show them that you keep your word.
Exactly. Yeah.
You stick to your gun.
Yeah, and don't get discouraged if you follow up once or twice or 6 times and they don't respond. Like I said earlier, keep out. They gave you the information. If you leave them a voicemail and it's legit their phone, send them a text. I'm trying to get in a better habit to send the text and then call, because the way that phones are now, at least Apple phones anyway, you say, hey, this is Corin Thompson with the Thompson team at Keller Williams. We met at this open house. I promised I would call you after the open house. I'm still at the open house, but I just wanted to follow up with a text to let you know I will be calling you afterwards. And then afterwards you call, now your name is in their phone because you texted them. Now, when you call, it says maybe Corin instead of 541-515-8081. They don't know what that number is, right? If it says maybe Corin, they might remember my name. Well, for one, I have a fairly unique name, but for two, they're like, why would, who's Corin? Well, I guess I'll answer it. It says maybe him. All right. But if it's just a number, it's a spam call. And then it goes to voicemail.
And that's if you left a voicemail?
No, if you send him a text.
Or if you send him okay.
So you send him a text, you say, hey Bob, I met you at the open house. This is Corin Thompson. It was at whatever the address was, on this date, same day, you don't have to put that, but I just want to let you know I'll be following up here in a couple hours after I'm done with this open house. Feel free to text me back if you have specific questions right now. Otherwise, we'll touch base when I call. And then that just puts your name into their phone, and it comes across as maybe Corin or whatever it is. But Sometimes it doesn't work, but the technology is there now for it to do that. Once you're in their phone, it'll say, oh, it might be this one. They texted you and they said their name is this. So this phone number must be them.
Can you hear me?
You're a little quiet, but yes, I can hear you, Q.
Okay. One scenario I'm gonna ask you is about crowded open house. So
Yeah.
let's say you're in communication with someone already, but you may lose out on some opportunity to talk to someone else, right?
Mhm.
Is it legally allowed to for us to put down some sign-in sheet on an island and ask them to put down their information if they're willing? Is it?
It's totally allowed. Absolutely.
Okay.
A sign-in sheet is the first step of trying to collect their information. If you can, I know in a busy open house situation, it's hard. But if you can, I prefer to write it down myself. One, I can read it. Although admittedly my handwriting is terrible, but one, I can read it. And two, it's a lot less likely they're going to lie to your face than writing down a false email and phone number.
Right.
So if you can break away from whoever you're chatting with, say, oh, excuse me, sorry, I haven't had a chance to introduce myself to these people over here. And it looks like they're about ready to leave. I just want to say hi and I'll be back in, just 30 seconds. So if you could have a little patience, I'll be right back. And just pop over like, hey, I'm Corin. Nice to meet you. I'm sorry, I've been really busy with this. Just want to introduce myself. And, if you have additional questions about the house or other houses in the area, and you aren't working with an agent, I'd love to get your contact information real quick. I'm happy to follow up when this settles down a little bit or after the open house. That's how I would prefer to handle it. But I've been in the situation where you got 10 people walking around in a house at the same time. There's no way you're going to touch all of them.
Right. All right. Thank you.
So, the worst case scenario, you hand them a business card and say, call me. It feels good because you're giving them something, but it's going in the trash as soon as they find a trash to give it the old treatment. So getting their information is key. And like I said, it's harder for them to lie to your face, talking to you than sure, sign in. Yeah. Joe Blow from, Arkansas or something like that. That's what they're going to write down. So that's how I would handle that situation. But you're going to miss if it's a really busy opportunity, open house. I mean, it's good for the seller and the listing agent, but not necessarily for you if you're trying to collect leads. Another way to combat that is to bring a lender friend of yours and co-host. It's an opportunity for you to touch twice. Just make sure you're clear on how to handle potential buyers. Some lenders will step over you, not intentionally, but they'll kind of step on your toes and have conversations that you don't want them to have initially with those people. So just make sure you're clear with your expectations on how you're going to handle people in the open house.
You're right. I did a broker tour yesterday, and actually they were doing co-hosting with a lender. So yeah, that's good. Yeah, right, thank you.
Yeah, and it's also a safety thing too. I try not to host an open house myself if I can help it. Because I have experience. If I'm hosting an open house, I'll bring in a newer agent and have them shadow me.
Yeah.
And then if I feel like this is maybe unique in myself, but if I feel like they're ready, then I'll hand off the next person that locks on the door and to say, it's yours, go for it. That depends on the person that is shadowing. Sometimes it takes them 6 or 7 times shadowing an open house before they're comfortable opening their mouth. So obviously I wouldn't hand off a client in that aspect, but I'm okay sharing that opportunity because then it gives you guys, the newer agents, the opportunity to bumble through something, and maybe I could step in and help you save it or give you the prompt of, hey, remember you're supposed to say this now. And help you through that conversation. But that's how I handle it. Other people may not be so open of sharing their potential leads at open houses.
Yeah, well, we have a personal productivity coach, and then obviously we're gonna be given opportunity to do shadowing with some business agent. So yeah,
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? Besides open houses, how are you guys generating leads?
Not yet.
Following up with
When
the
you ask,
sphere.
when you ask for people, if the people has an agent, the people say, yes, I'm working with an agent.
You're asking how do I handle that objection? Is that Johanna?
Yeah, yes, because the people, when the people go to the open house, you ask the people if the people is working with the agent, and the people
Yeah.
say, yes, I'm working with the agent.
Perfect. Yeah, no, it happens a lot. And that's why I ask who it is, because some people just make up a name, or think of the the last person they saw on a billboard that they just drove to the house to, and they just come up with a name. So that's why I dig in a little bit more than just asking that question. But if they truly say, I'm working with an agent and I trust them and I have an agreement signed, then at that point, you're just like, great, let me know if you have any questions about the house. Like that you just have to leave it at that point if they actually have a contract. Because then there's the ethics, like, right? We're all realtors, there's the ethics, we don't step on each other's toes. Yes, we're all in competition with each other, but there's a line and you don't cross that. And when they're working with somebody, they're working with somebody, and you have to be even careful any advice that you give, right? So that's why that's an important question for me to ask, is because I don't want to spend a half an hour walking around with somebody, building a rapport with them, and then they go, oh yeah, I'm actually working with somebody, they just sent me over here because they were busy, they couldn't make it. And I'm like, oh, that's great, it was really, really nice talking to you. Thanks, and it happens. It still does happen.
Yeah.
But it's helps you have a different conversation with them. And you can still talk to them. I mean, you're sitting there for 3 hours, bored out of your mind anyway if nobody's showing up. So I like talking to people. Doesn't hurt, but don't try and sell them on using you if they've already signed with with another agent. So good question, but yeah, if they say they have one, it's a different conversation. Brent, you were talking about sphere of influence. That's what are you doing?
Yeah,
with
no,
your
just trying to just follow up with people that I haven't really been, and just going down the line. I'm waiting for a lot of responses, but
how are
working
you
through it.
how are you trying to communicate with them?
Calling. I usually like to call.
Like actually picking up the phone?
Like calling.
And do you, with these people in your sphere of influence, is that how you communicate with them on a normal basis?
No. A lot of them no.
How do you
Typically, if
communicate with them?
Through messenger, like either
Facebook Messenger?
Facebook, either Facebook or actual texting. But
Okay.
a lot of the times, like the people that I do actually communicate with regularly, well, back then I would typically just call or like video chat. I would video chat them a lot because I like to see the person's face.
Sure. If you can get them on that, that's great.
If you can do that, yeah.
So why are you choosing to call them in a different, or communicate with them in a different way than you have in the past? Because you're trying to get business from them.
I think I'm trying to just change up the approach, and also I feel like it has a better I guess effect on engagement, but that might just be what I think. I don't know. That's kind of what I feel.
So you mentioned that you were waiting on responses from people. Do you feel like that's because you tried to call them, or do you feel like that's just your normal communication?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, because I wouldn't just stick to one thing with everybody. I would just kind of try this thing, try that thing, and see. I'm trying to kind of see what works best at the moment.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you.
It seems to be a mix, obviously, because everybody's different.
You right there, perfect. That's kind
And
of the
a
point
lot
I
of
was trying to
people
go with.
would say, yeah, let's meet up. Perfect. Like, let's do that. And then
Yeah.
and trying to figure out why is a challenge sometimes. So
Well, sometimes it's just them being polite, and then as soon as you're off the phone or whatever, then they ignore you. That's just one of the many ways people try and be polite with things. The reason I was asking how you were communicating with them is because I'm a little bit older generation. I didn't necessarily grow up with texting all the time. However, that's become the norm on how to communicate with people. Even my 78-year-old mom prefers text over phone call. So it's a learning curve for me because I'm similar to you. I like to see somebody at the very least over a video call or pick up the phone and have a conversation. I find it a lot more engaging, a lot more efficient. You can get a lot more done with having this type of a conversation. However, you have to meet your client where they're at, right?
Yeah.
You have to meet them, and majority of people nowadays will respond to a text better than they will respond to a phone call, especially if you have to go to their voicemail. A lot of people feel like it's an inconvenience when you call them. Because they feel like if they're going to answer it, they have to dedicate a certain amount of time at that point. That's a commitment, right? You text them, sure, the expectation is you respond faster than an email, but they can take a 15-minute break or a lunch and they're like, oh, look, I got a text from Brent. I haven't talked to him in a couple months. I wonder what he wants. Oh, look at that. He's just saying hi. Or I didn't know he's a realtor. That's really cool. Oh, that's funny. I was just talking to my wife about selling my house. Let me give him a text back. Hey, that's funny. You texted. It gives them the opportunity to respond at their own leisure.
hopefully I got the right number too, and it's not just like a disconnected number or anything like that.
If you're touching base with people that you haven't talked to in a long time, that's not your sphere of influence. That's just people in your database or in your phone contacts. So that's a little bit different. You do want to get in front of them. However, depending on how you approach it, sometimes text or Facebook Messenger is better. On another point, Facebook Messenger, or whatever messaging device you are, it adjusts their algorithm. So if I message you privately on Facebook Messenger and you respond, it tells Facebook that you want to talk to me, right? So now you start seeing my feed on Facebook, whereas before you didn't, right? So if you're texting somebody, that's great on your phone, right? That's great. They respond. That's awesome. You can convert to that at some point. But if you're friends with them on Facebook and you haven't chatted with them in a while, literally just send them a, hey, what's up? Been thinking about you.
Use the algorithm.
Now they're gonna start seeing your feed. And if you're posting stuff, hey, I'm a realtor now. You guys love me now. I'm awesome. They're gonna start seeing that. And they're gonna know, hey, he reached out to me, but he didn't ask for my business. He's just checking in. And then you work in, hey, a couple months down the road after you've engaged back and forth, or a couple weeks down the road. Hey, did you happen to see I'm a realtor now? I was just curious. I'm looking to see if you need any help or you know anybody. It's not an immediate, hey, I'm a salesperson. I don't care about you. I haven't talked to you about 6 months. I don't care about you. But hey, you selling a house? Now I care about you. It's we're in a relationship business, right? So build that relationship. Just be careful how you reach out to people that you haven't talked to in a long time. Don't be afraid of it, but it's about relationships. And if you build that relationship, when the time they are ready and you're top of mind, they will call you. So ask for business, but also build that relationship first. But that's great that you're at least going through your phone contacts or your Facebook contacts and touching base with them.
I don't know if it's weird, but I'm one of those people who've had the same phone number since 2011. So.
Yeah. No, well, obviously that's great. And a lot of people have the same email or phone for a long time. They don't change it because now you can switch carriers and it goes with you. So a lot more people have that.
Right.
But yeah, touching your database is important. Touching your sphere of influence is even more important because those are the people that actually already know and trust you. So reaching out to them and asking for the business is not as awkward, right? You already have that relationship status with them. When I was first started, I literally called my best friend from high school. We still are friends, and we communicate a lot. And I called him up and I jokingly said, I am trying to practice my script that I'm getting from my brokerage on how to help people buy and sell. So I'm going to read this script to you in a very automated voice because I don't know what I'm talking, or I don't know what it actually says. And I said, hi, I'm Corin. I'm a new realtor. Do you know anybody that's willing or wanting to buy and sell real estate? And he's like, Corin, me. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, my wife and I are looking at a rental property and you called and I want to use you. And I'm like, holy crap, this actually worked. So it works. You may feel like an idiot, but that person I have a very good relationship with, so it worked. I would not do that with somebody I'm just randomly calling for the first time in 6 years, but that gives you an idea of how easy it can be. You don't overthink things, just do it.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions, burning ideas? It doesn't even have to be on qualifying. Obviously, that's what I'm supposed to be teaching you. And before I forget, do not call list. Don't call people that are on that list. It was a disclaimer I'm supposed to tell you. Everybody's supposed to tell you, and I'm sure you've heard it 100 times. But this is recorded, so I'm sure they'll know that I said it or not. So, anyway, any other questions?
I have a question.
All right.
So I have a client. Sorry, can you hear me? I
Yeah,
have a
absolutely. Go
client.
ahead.
I have a potential client that she said that she would like to sell her house and buy a new house, but she doesn't want to decide now because she said that she want to look into the new Trump administration before she decide what should I approach her and how often should I approach her.
So just to make sure I heard you or understand you correctly, you're saying that you wanted to wait until you said Trump administration? Is that what you said?
Like everything's like stable because of right now it's a change to the Trump.
Totally,
Yeah.
and we don't even have to get into politics any more than that. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure I understood what you said.
Yeah.
And the change in presidency is an emotional thing for people, one way or the other, right? Regardless of who it is and when it is. So that's an understandable, and it's an objection I heard a lot last year. Reality, the actual statistics show that the real estate market has historically always gone up after a presidential election. So just statistics for your own sake. But emotionally, that doesn't matter to people, right? So you need to stay engaged with this person, or maybe just point blank ask, do you have a time frame in mind? Like when you feel like things will be settled or things will be comfortable enough for you to feel like we can revisit this conversation. It also depends, where do they want to move to a different state because of what things are going on, or is it still in the area? They just want to make sure that housing doesn't go crazy or the world doesn't do whatever it's going to do with a different administration.
Actually,
Like those are.
she would like to move to, like, she is old already. She would like to move to like one level home because right now she have like 3 levels home, and
Okay.
enclosed in her area. And currently, I try to feed her the current new listing in that area all the time, but she has not decided yet because of she afraid of investing in something that if the rule and regulation had changed and she will miss something. That's why she would like to stay put and understand the situation first and then decide it later. So my question, I don't want to be annoying, but I don't want to be annoying that keep barking her, but do you think that how often I should like approach her and in what way make it friendly? Actually, I mean, but not that for a while, but not that.
Yeah. Does she
first.
own her own house now?
Yeah, she
So
has.
she needs to
She
sell
probably
her house.
maybe, yeah, she has like her own house and her rental house, but she can sell everything combined and buy comfortable one level house for herself.
Okay. Yeah, so I would ask her when you talk to her next what her motivation, like it sounds like her motivation is that she will physically not be able to live in the house that she is currently living in? Like when she gets to the point where she is old enough, like she's
Yes.
worried about tripping and falling. It's a safety thing.
Correct. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. And she would like to get like one level, does not need to have any.
Sure, with no step down into the living room or anything like that.
Mm.
But for me, that's a pretty big motivator. If she is in a state of becoming less mobile, and it's a real concern for her. And so without harping on it, I would help her realize that that is a motivation that she could focus on. As far as shaken out of the current administration, if she is already in the housing market, like she's just flipping from what, because you said she already owns a house. So I'm trying to understand like why.
Oh, she have a house that she's living, and she also
Yeah.
has the rental property. She said that she doesn't want to have any mortgage. She probably, if the house that she's living cannot cover whatever brand new, she can sell the rental both of them to buy the new one. That's what's her plan.
Right. Okay. So okay. Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of feel out how your conversation with her went. And if she gave you kind of an indication of what the timeline is, follow up like a week before that. As far as like, oh, I let's revisit it in a month. Call her in like 3 weeks, and it's like, hey, it's been about a month. Just want to see if anything's changed. It's been and then set the next appointment or the next expectation of when you're going to follow up with her every single time you talk to her or engage with her, because then there's no unknowns at that point. Right. And each time you talk to the person or engage with them, I'm assuming because she's older, she may want to actually have conversations on a phone, but you never know. So whatever the preferred method of conversation is, basically, or communication, set the expectation for when you're going to follow up and then do it. Say, hey, do you have anything that you're seeing that maybe something you're seeing may be a timeline for something to actually happen that would be an actionable item for you to get more comfortable with the way things are going to shake out? Is that 2 weeks from now? Is there an announcement that's going to come out next quarter, or the update on the economy? What's your kind of your indicator that everything's comfortable for me, right? Ask her those kind of questions, and so you can get a little bit of a timeline out of her. And otherwise you're just shooting in the dark. I mean, really, you have to be able to help her understand what her timeline and motivation is. And by asking diving questions, I like the analogy of don't snorkel, scuba dive. Meaning snorkeling is right at the surface. You have to keep the snorkel above water. So you're only asking surface level questions. Scuba dive, right? Get down underneath, get to the bottom of the ocean and really explore. So you actually understand what you're getting into, and what they're getting into. So that's a case of work on scuba diving and not snorkeling at the surface, because you're maybe uncomfortable about being awkward with her. Any other challenges? Go get them, Tigers. Thank you for your time today. Sorry, I think it's flipped through because there were some breakout sessions we were supposed to do for like 15-20 minutes each. And I don't know if you guys have been doing those or not. But I find most people don't do them anyway. Even if I do break you out into groups or say, all right, I'm going to mute and you guys go make your phone calls. I just see either screens go blank, if they aren't already, or you just sit there and scroll on social media. So I find these question and answer sessions a lot more beneficial for you guys as newer agents, to actually ask your questions. It is very important to still do your calls and touches. So I'm not going to excuse you from doing that, but I understand the awkwardness of sitting on a Zoom call and trying to do those while other people may or may not be seeing what you're looking at. So I would encourage you to make your phone calls if you haven't already today, or texts, or however you're communicating with your sphere or your other people. Please do be mindful of the do not call list. because it is legit thing. You can get a pretty hefty fine if you break that, so don't do that. I put my contact information in the chat. Anytime you guys have any questions, I mean it, text, call, email, whatever you want to call it. Feel free to friend me on Facebook or social media if you want. That's fine as well. I don't have necessarily a large business following, but I do post on there. Just be prepared if you friend me personally, there's going to be a lot of dad jokes. So just be aware of that. If you don't like them, don't follow me. But anyway, hopefully this was helpful, whether the class information or this question and answer. But I do mean it, reach out. I was there, I was a new agent. All of us are at different levels in our career, in our life. But even if you're new to the industry or new to an area or both, there's ways for you to grow your business. And that's the beauty of Keller Williams is we try and support all different aspects in all different ways that you can be successful. So I encourage you to reach out to people in your office or whoever you're comfortable with reaching out to and asking the questions. Because like I said at the beginning, you don't know what you don't know. Unless you ask, the answer is always no.
Thank you, Corin.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
Corin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.